So start in chapter 3, looking at formulas and variables. In variable, I'm just going to start with the definition. It's a letter or symbol. I wouldn't worry about that whole symbol thing. I think for that, they're really just kind of talking about Greek letters. You know, Greek letters are often used as variables later on in life. But a variable is going to be a letter or symbol that represents a quantity that can... Before I write the last one, if you look at the word variable, it's spelled wrong, but it starts with the word vary. So a variable is a letter or symbol that represents a quantity that can change or that can vary. You know, it could be different things. So if we get a question that says, find the variables in an equation. So variables. So what are the variables in A equals pi r squared? Really saying what letters in there, what symbols in there represent things that could change, that could be different. So you have one of them first, Nick?
R and A.
R and A. So A and R and A. I went alphabetical. Any others? Pi is the tempting one, and lots of people, if I put this on the quiz, get it wrong. But can pi change? No. Pi is always that 3.14159. I didn't bother to memorize the rest of them, but somebody knows more than me. But pi is this number that they figured out to, I think, a couple million digits that doesn't ever change. So pi is not a variable. 2. Does the number 2 ever change? Nope, it's always 2. So if those aren't variables, a wise person would say things like pi and things like 2 are constants. Okay, so constants. So constant is something that doesn't change. You could say stays the same if you wanted to. Constant is something that stays the same. So examples, you could put a pi there if you wanted to. You could put the number 2. I'm just going to write numbers. But then that would include 2 and 7 and 8.5. I suppose numbers includes pi as well, doesn't it? Roman numeral 3, formula. So formula, we said it's an equation. For something to be an equation, it has to have an equals and something on both sides of the equals. Fair enough? So a formula, if it's an equation, it also has to have an equal sign in it, and there has to be something before the equals and something after the equals. A formula is an equation in the form of one variable equals something. So it could be something real simple like x equals 5 technically is a formula because it's one single variable equals something. Most often, though, we have things like a equals pi r squared, or c, capital C, equals 2 pi. You guys not recognize these?
No.
2 pi r? Oh, guess what we're doing later on this year. So some people do, some don't. If you guys learn Newton's second law, F equals?
What?
All right. Well, you're going to learn all kinds of exciting formulas this year. You'll love it. Okay. Formula, things like those. When you put numbers in for variables in an equation, we call it, when you're on the soccer field and you're getting tired and the coach says, substitution. So substitution. In theory, you're playing soccer, you're playing volleyball, something like that. If they take you out of the game at right forward and they put somebody else in at right forward, that person's replacing you. It's that same sort of thing with numbers. That if you put a number in for a variable, if you substitute it in, it replaces a variable. So, record doesn't really matter. Okay. I'm going to be a little bit picky first time around. If you have questions in the homework tonight that give you equations like this, first I'd like you to write the equation. So I'm going to copy down D equals S times T. Nice. Distance equals speed times times. By the way, the homework, they do this here. D equals R times T. And R equals D divided by T. So they're just using R instead of speed. So for the first couple ones in the homework, when you see those, if you just want to write a S in there instead, or R just means speed. It's the rate. But okay, let's keep going. So for those, if I want to find the distance, it says how far, so we're looking for distance. Does a Boeing 747 travel in 4 hours if it flies at 604 miles per hour? So first step, write the equation. Second step, what do I put in for speed?
604.
Perfect, 604. And in a perfect world, you also put in units. I'm not going to bother checking that in math class, but you could put miles per hour there if you wanted to. And T, the time is 4 hours. So if we do that, we end up with 2,416. And that would be miles. But I guess you can skip the miles if you want. When I was a science teacher, I was really picky about people putting units in. And then in my math classes, I just was like, well, just get the answer. We'll worry about units in physics class or freshman science class. Yeah, I taught physics and other stuff for a bunch of years. But anywho, now I'm more worried about the number. If you want to do units, that's great, but you don't have to. For these, I'm going to be, it doesn't matter. Okay, backside, or next page. Made this question all by myself. If a person's IQ drops by 5 for every Red Bull they drink, what would a person's IQ be after 6 Red Bulls if they started with an IQ of 104? So an above average person. So I think 100 is like average IQ. So what in the world do you do with the numbers 5, 6, and 104? So Katie has the thought for us.
So the score drops 5.
If we have to talk through it, say this. Person starts out at 104, yes? If we say the person's IQ drops, what math operation is going to be a drops? Subtraction or minus. So we're going to have 104 minus some number, good? If the person drinks 1 Red Bull, it drops by how much? 5. So to degree, I'd be minus 5 if I had 1 Red Bull, and they'd be at 99 for 1. If instead of 1 Red Bull, they have 2 Red Bulls, we'd be dropping it by 10. So 1 Red Bull I need to take and turn that into a 5. 2 Red Bulls I need to turn that into a minus 10. 3 Red Bulls I need to turn that into 15. So what could I do to 1 to turn it into 5? I could add 4 or I could...
3 times 2 would be 15 times 2.
Well, so for this I could either add 4 or I could times it by 5, yes? Well, if I add 4 here, does it give me 10? Nope. But if I multiply by 5, it gives me 10, multiply by 5. So basically I take the number of Red Bulls times 5 gives me how much it drops. Agreed? So you could, if you wanted to write the formula and try to feel like you're really kicking butt, you could say 104 minus 5R or something like that for 5 Red Bulls. But either way you do it, you end up with, thinking faster than I can write, 104 minus 5 times 6. And that's what Katie was saying. Katie in her head said, okay, if it's drops by 5 for every Red Bull, and this person has 6 Red Bulls, that they drop by 30. Their IQ drops by 30. So that's how she came up with 104 minus 30. So ones like this where they don't give you an equation, so 74 is final answer. They don't give you an equation. You don't have to come up with something like IQ equals, you don't have to come up with that. You can. But if you're trying to write an equation like this, look at what they do to the numbers. And if you can figure out, oh, the numbers are always multiplied by 5, well, then you just multiply your number by 5. So figure out what they do to the numbers and then put your variables in for that. But you don't have to write the equation and show your work for one like this.